start discussing is about the racial issues that we had occurred in school. And we want to thank you for like the wonderful discussion that you guys kind of started. But there's some things that students kind of want to address regarding the issue. So one thing that some students complained was that they did not really they were not informed about the issues that was going on in school. So they were kind of clueless when it came to the assembly. So students felt that they should be informed about the assembly or about like what's going on in school and such. And they believe that we're not gonna, if we don't do this, then this prevents students from having conversation in class and with their peers. Another thing that students wanted to talk about was the second period, the talk we had in second period, and they thought that that was very useful. And they believe that we should kind of have it more regularly, maybe like weekly or every other week or such, because they felt that if more people talk about it, then we're gonna be more tolerant about like the discussion and all that. And teachers should ask students how they're feeling every couple of weeks or so. About the tradition of excellence that we held on Friday, although there was like the airdrop incident and such, we want to talk about how the tradition of excellence went really well, and many people were appreciative of it. And the speaker also had a great message for the students and took pride in their award with this honor. What we're going to do at Student Council this month is we wrote thank you letters for a lot of teachers. We wrote over 300 thank you letters for the teachers, so that we can like show appreciation for what they've done. And one thing that we were hoping to do is we started raising money by selling this cardboard feather, so that what we do is we sell it for $1 and then students can write their name on it, and then we have this huge poster board with like a turkey so that they can stick the feather in it. And then we're trying to raise money for ALS because this last weekend, Sarah Coughlin, who was a Tradition of Excellence nominee, she unfortunately passed away due to ALS. So we really want to raise money for her and the ALS community. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. In the light of the events of the past week, I'd like to adjust my normal superintendent's report and use this as an opportunity to update the board and the public on student and staff accomplishments, which is what I usually do. But however, I want to use this month's report to give a public update on some of the racial equity work that has taken place within our building. First, I want to thank each and every one of you who has been sending messages of support to our students and our staff. This has indeed been a challenging time for the high school, but it has also proven to be an opportunity for our entire community to come together to fight racism, anti-Semitism, anti-Islamism, homophobia, and all other forms of bigotry. I am so proud of our students, our staff, and the wider community for the message that you are sending out to the world, that hate has no home at OPRF. The district has been acting on our commitment to achieve equity for many years. Recent events have served only to strengthen our resolve to create access and opportunity for all students. I am grateful that so many of the community are now expressing a desire to join the effort because we can all get more done together. Here's an update on some of the work. First, we have presented a racial equity policy to the board. Over the summer, Principal Rouse worked on researching racial equity policies, then wrote one for D200. He presented the draft policy to the board at his September 18, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting. The draft policy commits the district to a variety of actions that students and community members have voiced their concern for. Using a racial equity analysis tool to review district policies and procedures, programs, and professional development. Implementing culturally responsive curriculum and teaching practices that reflect the diversity of our student body. Eliminating practices that lead to disproportionate representation of particular student groups and discipline systems. Recruiting, hiring, and retaining staff of color to mirror our student demographic. At the September 28th meeting, the board supported further work to refine the draft policy and asked the administration to work with the team including experts in the field, just as we did with the Gender Equity Committee, to give input on best practices and craft clear procedures that are then agreed upon by students, staff, and community members. Formation of the team is underway. Administration will be formalizing the racial equity policy and procedures to bring back to the board no later than the end of the school year, and this will be done with the inclusion of students, staff, and community boards. In the fall of 2017, we drafted a hiring protocol focused on hiring teachers of color. We realized our plan needed to be broader, and at the same September 18, 2018 board meeting, administrators presented the board with a comprehensive talent management plan that explains how we plan to recruit, hire, and retain excellent teachers and staff. The plan says plainly, our recruitment strategies will focus explicitly on attracting highly effective teachers and staff with diverse backgrounds, especially teachers of color. The plan states clearly that we intend to hire teachers and staff who view students' existing cultural resources as assets and who are aware of how their own identity affects the understanding. This too will have the inclusion of staff and community voice. From 2012 to 2017, our professional development has focused on having healthy conversations about race. Our current multi-year professional development plan is focused on eliminating racial bias in classroom practices. Last year, approximately 40 teachers received intensive training in racial equity leadership. Beginning this school year, all Oak Park faculty members have been assigned to small groups led by these teachers. The groups will spend the next ensuing years analyzing their curriculum, teaching methods, practices, processes, and classroom relationships through a racial lens and acting on their research to eliminate bias in our classroom. In addition, this year, 2 OPRF faculty members with an extensive background in racial equity leadership are mentoring their colleagues as racial equity coaches. Finally, as promised, I am forming a student leadership advisory committee that is diverse across all student demographics, including race, religion, ethnicity. This new committee is scheduled to hold its first meeting Tuesday, November 20th at 3:20 in the Little Theater. The student advisors will play an essential role in offering input and guidance on implementing a student-initiated racial equity curriculum, as well as looking at other initiatives the students have recommended, such as in their policy, hiring an assistant superintendent for equity, and developing student-led clubs that promote racial justice initiatives. The racial equity work we began years ago continues, and now with more community support than ever. As Mahatma Gandhi said, if we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. We need not wait and see what others do. Oak Park and River Forest High School has the potential to be a national model for providing a just, equitable education for all our students, and I welcome all the community to help us achieve this goal. And last but not least, if you did not notice, I just want to announce that our students and some of our staff members did a wonderful, took a wonderful step forward today with spreading love on the posters on the lockers. That concludes my announcement.
We are now at the public comments portion of our agenda, and there was an announcement put out earlier, and I will reiterate that now, given the large agenda that we have this evening to discuss, as well as the number of folks that have signed up for public comment. I am asking, and one of our students asked me to remind everyone as well that we will approach public comments in the same way that we do every other aspect of our relationships, with civility and respect, and listen to learn. We will do 30 minutes of public comment now, and if there are more signed up, we will do those after we have had our information on the Imagine project. And we are limiting the public comments to 2 minutes to afford more individuals the opportunity to speak. So I will turn it over and ask Ms. Council who signed up. Oh, I'm sorry. As our practice has been this year, we will start with our students for public comments. So I recognized a few names, but if there are students that have signed up, could you, I don't want to call them, but I know the names that I saw there, but I know Safe Students was one group, and Grace. If there are others that want to make public comment, if you could come in some order that would come to you. Grace. Is Grace done?
And we're asking, while our student leaders speak, for any adult or community member in here in support of the work our student leaders are doing, please stand up in solidarity as they speak their truth.
My name is Chloe Leach, and I am a sophomore here at OPRF, and I am also part of SAFE. We are students who are all part of SAFE. We are aware of the work and collaboration the administration is conducting with students. We appreciate you all. We came out today to demand the use of the racial equity policy and curriculum. We have the support of the school, students, and community. We are here to make sure things go through as promised. We have held rallies, led a school walkout, led a march for community unity, and we are here today to get your commitment to implement our student-led / student-created curriculum. We want our curriculum to be implemented as soon as possible. In reality, the content of our proposed curriculum should have been part of all English, history, world study classes a long time ago. It shouldn't have to be our responsibility to bring this up, but we are here because we care about our classmates and their experiences in the school. My sister, who's a senior, is still invested in getting our curriculum implemented, even though she will not benefit from it. We are committed to this. Please do not delay this any longer. Thank you.
My name is Jocelyn, and I am a sophomore and a new member of SAFE. I'm here today because I also want to make sure that Latino issues are front and center. Along with the equity in curriculum, I want you all to consider the implementation of native Spanish classes. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The Latino population in Oak Park is growing very fast. And instead of doing things too late, we should prepare ourselves to make sure we are ready to serve the Latino population. That includes hiring an undocumented student counselor and ensuring that all our current counselors are trained on issues that affect undocumented students. It means hiring Latinx and Black teachers and staff. The school needs to make sure we have enough bilingual speaking admin that can serve Latino families. I am also demanding that Latinx history be part of all relevant class curriculum, including history, English, and world studies. I am proud to stand with my Black and brown brothers and sisters to demand racial justice and equity.
Okay, hey y'all. I'm Grace Gunn. I'm a senior here at OP. And I am definitely standing with SAFE and am in agreement and in support with everything that they're doing. But I'm also adding to that, whereas I'm asking that you all consider hiring a racial consciousness committee for as far as hiring, because unfortunately whiteness isn't something that just affects white people. It also affects people of color, and hiring people of color that aren't racially conscious can affect students in a negative way just as much as white teachers. So I'm asking that you all consider that, to examine every teacher that you all hire, even if they're teachers of color. Also, I wanted
to present to you all that you all hire, just as we have a sexual harassment coordinator, a racial equity coordinator, because I feel like in the school, when we have instances like these, we're confused on who to look to or who to handle the problem. So if we have someone like that, kids will know exactly who to go to report those type of crimes or report those type of incidents in the classroom. And it will give us more direction, because I know personally I've been, and even in Blue, the question comes up a lot, what should we do in this situation? And we feel like we've been targeted, we feel like we've been discriminated against, et cetera, et cetera. I don't do it all the time. So yes, those are both of my recommendations, and thank you for recognizing the notes in the hallway, but I wanted to make note that while people from Blue and Safe and just other people in the school helped do the action, the initial idea came from Ms. Reynolds, and I want to recognize her and everything that she does for a lot of the students of color in this building. And it does not even just students of color, just every student, and that everyone, just as a public service announcement, just shows her the love and gratitude and appreciation and respect that she deserves. Thank you.
Stepping out like individually, I'm pretty sure we all are. I just want to start off by saying SAFE worked really hard on the petition, the racial equity petition, and the demands I think we should focus on are implementing teacher, student, staff, racial consciousness training, and fund a student-initiated racial equity curriculum, which we already created, and hire teachers that reflect the student body. And with that, my most important one was hiring teachers that reflect the student body, but I don't think we can hire a bunch of teachers of color and there's no retention in the school. And I don't blame just people, the administrators here, I also blame the community, because it's really hurting me that Dr. Pruitt-Adams and Dr. Moore and Mr. Clark are being targeted. From people that are probably sitting here, and it's really important that you understand that they are helping us. They've been with us 100% from the beginning, and I just ask that you respect them, because I don't think it's cool sending people threatening things and making them feel bad for something that they believe in and you don't know them, because I'm seeing them basically every day, 24/7, working with them 24/7, and they've become like parents in the building. And so you're stepping out, you're looking from the inside in and just assuming that they're not doing anything, and I don't think that's fair, and that really hurts us, and because we don't have that retention here in the building, but we also don't have it in the community, and I think it starts there. So the teachers that work here that are pushing out the people of color and the staff that they're trying to hire, just working on that and teaching them like not to, outcast anybody, but also the community does need to work on bullying people, because that's what we were fighting against for like 2 weeks, and we're doing something that's way worse. So I just want to say thank you to you guys, and don't let that mess with anything that you're doing. I really do appreciate you.
Leslie, oh.
Good evening, board members, students, faculty, and parents. My name is Anderson Kennedy, and I'm a junior here at OPRF. I'm sure all of you are aware of the recent counts of hate speech and hate crimes involving anti-Semitism, racism, and Islamophobia that have happened here on our campus as well as off of it. And I believe that as our administration has taken the actions that they believe was best for their students and faculty, they did not allow due process for one of their rulings. I personally, because that is all I can speak for, has been affected by the absence of one of our teachers here at OPRF. Recently, as some of you may know, there's been a reassignment in one of our classrooms, and this has left myself and others flying blind without the previous strong-handed guidance that we had in the classroom prior to this reassignment. Oak Park and River Forest High School preaches restorative justice, and I feel that in this case it was not fulfilled. For those of you that don't know, restorative justice involves the offender and the parties affected to sit and discuss along with qualified personnel to come to an understanding that both parties can advance, build, and come to a resolution involving safe and consistent education. How was it that after this process began, with all of the necessary cogs in place in the classroom to create an environment of advancement and healing, the process was then stopped? For me personally, it felt as if the time taken out of class dedicated to the situation was dedicated to healing of our students was disregarded once a seemingly quicker way of pacifying the situation was found. This held no regard for the after effects of the decisions made would have on the students' ability to learn and again feel safe in the classroom's environment. It simply felt as if the removal was a knee-jerk reaction to alleviate pressure applied to the administration from parents and guardians on social media. The choice made enforces all that I've been hearing recently in the halls, which includes, it's not those things that are best, it's those things that look best. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other students that would like to make comments? Okay.
Naomi Hildner.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to see you all here. And board members, thank you for letting us speak. My comment is primarily a reaction to our community meeting from last Wednesday. My thoughts were in our Trump era, when the rhetoric of hatred and bigotry has been ramped up, when truth becomes irrelevant, and when rumors become truth. When speaking with authority minus crucial facts, we must be careful that we do not, in our zeal, become part of the problem. The big picture in our big school is that our students are awesome. And we just saw that a minute ago. Our teachers are dedicated. They don't commit hate crimes. We have a long way to go. I know that is true, and I applaud all the efforts that are being made. But true progress only emerges, really, in an atmosphere of kindness, in an atmosphere of trust, and the cooperation of mutual parties. That's what I'm hoping to see emerge out of the unfortunate events of the past few weeks. Thank you.
Monica Sheehan.
Good evening, Monica Sheehan, 626 Fair Oaks. As you prepare to accept Imagine's plan tonight, I have two questions. First, please clarify what acceptance of this plan means. 2 years ago, you accepted the 2016 long-term facility plan, which included 3 options and was the result of a nearly year-long effort examining the facilities and assessing needs. One key difference between that plan and Imagine's is that Imagine has tacked on a list of recommendations, including ones that are intended to exert influence and control over the implementation of the plan. I find the recommendations to be an act of overreach. As such, my second question is for you to clarify the role of the Imagine Group moving forward. Imagine has done exactly as it was instructed. It created a long-term plan without any parameters, financial or otherwise. It's now time for you, our elected board, to begin the process of prioritizing the elements of the plan and deciding what should and can be addressed in the short term. Thank you.
Anthony Clark.
I signed up with the intent to cede my time to our student leaders, so I would just say I'm here in support. I'm getting behind you all in an effort to be an ally in bird reform, and I'm going to fight to have justice over civility, and I hope the rest of you do too. It's justice first. Thank you.
Marty Bernstein.
Good evening, board, everyone who's here. First, condolences to anyone who knew Sarah Taglianese. I know her folks, so there's that. My name's Marty Bernstein, and I live on Gunderson Avenue. In 2016, the taxpayers of Oak Park and River Forest voted down the referendum for a pool. Since the referendum failed, District 200 has embarked on another plan that mirrors what was defeated in 2016. A plan that includes an oversized pool and demolition of structurally sound and useful buildings to make room for the pool. The voters said no in 2016, and to my knowledge, there has not been another referendum since to reverse the results of 2016. Why is the board ignoring the will of the people? No too large pool, no demolition of good buildings. If you approve the Imagine plan as written, you will fail everyone in Oak Park and River Forest. You can fix this tonight by rejecting the Imagine plan in favor of one that puts academics before extracurriculars and does not call for the demolition of good structures that could be renovated. Thank you for your time.
Keisha, what,
My name is Makisha Borno Benson, and I am the parent of 3 children, one in D97, a senior here at the high school, and an Oak Park River Forest High School graduate. I am making a statement on behalf of the Friends of the D97 Oak Park Diversity Council, DIVCO. The mission of the Diversity Council is to support our Oak Park schools and fellow community organizations like SEE, Apple, SE Way, and expand their efforts in creating districts that are welcoming, inclusive, and equitable for all families, resulting in academic and social success for every child, but with particular emphasis and impact for kids of color and those students that are the most marginalized. By show of hands here, how many people in this room are D97 or D90 parents and or sit on their school's diversity committee? What we're trying to represent today is that we're here and we're watching. We are watching what you all collectively can accomplish today, tomorrow, and certainly by the time that many of our young children enter these 4 walls. This isn't only a high school issue though, it's a community one. Almost exactly 1 year ago, the Diversity Council and several of its partnering organizations came together to create a statement that appealed to you and your fellow school colleagues across Oak Park and River Forest. We ask that you collectively address the issues that incited last year's blackface incident. If you recall, a white student was miseducated and misguided and decided to paint his face black and circulate that post in jest on social media. Back then, we cited that the Diversity Council believed that the incident created an opportunity for school leaders and concerned citizens to turn an ugly incident into a learning opportunity for students, parents, and the community. We went further to acknowledge that the ongoing racial tensions when addressed will further tear the fabric of our community. Now here we are again. That same appeal included very specific steps that should be taken in partnership with the Diversity Council.
I'm sorry,
and
but
its
I'm
partnering
gonna ask you to
organizations.
stop. Thank you.
These actions were very immediate in nature, but certainly hopefully address acne needs as a whole. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Venus Hurd Johnson, and I'm going to continue the statement that Makisha began. These are organizations ask to partner with you to establish fair and equitable policies that effectively address school and community culture in which unacknowledged tensions have been allowed to fester. We recommend as a first step for the school districts and Oak Park River Forest school leaders to work collectively and create a joint statement that swiftly, clearly, and unambiguously denounces racist behavior and communicate that the Oak Park and River Forest schools stand for respect, inclusion, and a culture of advancing meaningful restorative justice, and one which creates a welcoming community for every child. We also requested that you all collectively create age-appropriate safe spaces across our schools to ensure that children have an opportunity to voice their concerns, thoughts, questions, and experiences about race, and in turn have them adequately addressed in culturally competent ways. But here we are again. We went on to state that, in partnership with community organizations, offer educational opportunities for families to engage in dialogue around race and how to handle discussions in their home. We requested a review and prioritization of the social studies and histories curricula to ensure that it reflects the history of our diverse student base, and work collectively with teachers, curriculum directors, and community members to ensure that the high standards of our community are upheld. Today, we will further underscore that we demand the swift adoption of the OPRF High School Student Racial Equity Curriculum that is in front of you now. Finally, we ask that the districts and school leaders to practice critical pedagogy and take an equally critical lens to investigating institutional structures and power dynamics. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Charity Caldwell, and I'm a high school parent and a member of the diversity committee. I'm going to continue the statement that Nikki Shannon is working on. What we experienced these past 2 weeks through these terrible acts of aggression are representative of a deeper passivity that exists for many white Oak Parkers who teach their children that we are all the same, color doesn't exist, and hatred doesn't happen in Oak Park. For those of us that do address issues of race and white suppression in the home, you can imagine that those conversations can vary from one end of the spectrum that teaches the reality of who our children are, but emphasizes love and care for each other, to the other end of that same spectrum where money, access, and privilege is heavily implied, and therefore we get entitlement, greed, and power. We fully support SAFE and BLU and other student organizations in their selfless efforts to make Oak Park and River Forest High School an emotionally and physically safe space for students to thrive and learn in and to uncover their best selves in. We demand that these students be heard. We support students in the middle schools who try so very hard to be heard, who are trying to find themselves and whose voices are often muted by dominant culture. These students are making critical choices now and need to be prepared for what's in front of them now. We support the children in primary and secondary schools who don't have the words to express how they're feeling. We support their need to be taught by teachers of color. We support them seeing themselves in books. We support them having safe spaces and trusted adults to help champion them. Finally, we want to underscore how important it is that our district finalizes their equity policies. We urge you to work with your peers, leverage the best that there is without adding more time, and create a community plan that includes concrete goals, timetables, and evaluation measures, all being essential to move us from aspiration to action and finally achievement. Friends of District 97 Diversity Council, please stand up in support of our high school students. These organizations are supporting this work and the efforts of equity that must be addressed not only at the high school, but in all Oak Park and River Forest schools.
Hi, my name is Josh Vanderberg, and I live at 1010 South Newport. Imagine has completed its work, and likely you, Lord, will accept its recommendation tonight. It's time to thank Imagine, dismiss its members, and move on to the hard work of creating a workable, affordable renovation plan for our high school. Creating such a plan will require making tough decisions and balancing the competing needs of the community, students, faculty, and taxpayers. The end result should be a comprehensive facilities plan that tells the community what will be done, when it will be done, how much it will cost, and how it will be funded. I ask the board tonight to commit to delivering such a plan before it begins any renovation work, and to commit to a date when the plan will be delivered. I further ask the board to commit to submitting any additional borrowing needs required to fund this plan to a referendum. If your plan is effective, affordable, and balanced, the community will support it. In summary, I ask the board the following questions. Can the board commit to delivering a facilities plan that specifies what will be done, when it will be done, how much it will cost, and how it will be funded? Can the board commit to creating such a plan before renovation begins? By what date will this plan be completed? And can the board commit to submitting any additional borrowing requirements to fund this plan to a referendum? Thank you.
Sarah,
I'd like to give my time to a student or student leader to speak.
Anderson, I'm sorry.
I've already spoken, thank you.
David Yamashita.
I withdraw my comments this evening.
Beth Ann Jacobs.
I too would like to give my time for a student leader or student in the room to speak if there hasn't been enough said.
John Duffy.
First, I want to thank our brave and courageous students. We're all hurting. Our hearts are heavy. I want to thank Dr. Pruitt for showing her courageous leadership, too. Urgency, excuse my cold. Urgency, urgency, urgency. We brought the idea of a racial equity policy before this board over 2 years ago. 1 month ago, we brought a prototype for what it might look like. Tonight, we bring a document in collaboration with wonderful people from DIVCO that says how you go about adopting, implementing, and then embedding it throughout the community. The easy work, believe it or not, is the policy. You can look at best practice. The hard work is putting it into practice and believing and living it every day. And cannot wait till May 31st to have a policy approved by this board. That's untenable, unacceptable, and given the atmosphere in this community and country, it's immoral. I urge you to move quickly on this, because if it's adopted in the spring, it's not going to be implemented until next year, a year from now if we're lucky. 11 years ago, this board heard about restorative justice, and guess what? It's finally being implemented. We can't wait that long. Our children are suffering. Our families are crying. I know you're hurting. I believe in you. You ran on these commitments. We ask you to act. Act now. Don't delay.
Kirsten Malik.
Thank you to the board for this chance to talk. My children are still in elementary school, but I hope they will be students here someday. And one of the most important things I hope they learn from being in their schools now and this school is how to be in and contribute to a community that is inclusive,
representative, welcoming, and diverse, a community that cares for everyone and welcomes other people to join. And how well they learn to do that depends on us and depends on you. It depends on how well you listen, and it depends on what you say, but so much more, as we've said, on what you do. And you are being watched so carefully by every student in this school. They're watching what you're going to do, they're watching how you act, and they're watching what's going to happen next. These are kids who are forming every day, right now, forming the ideas and action plans that will shape their lives, their conceptions of themselves, their conceptions of the world, and what's possible for them to achieve. They are making those decisions every single day and deciding whether they can trust grown-ups, whether they can trust institutions of power, whether they can trust that plans actually ever turn into action, and if people in power can ever affect change, and deciding what kind of adult it's possible for them to be. And you have such an opportunity here to set a better example, a better one than we ever had in our generation, a radically supportive and active example, and it's one that could transform every student here into someone who has the optimism and motivation needed to make our world a better place. The point of urgency is, and I want this group just to remember, that every day kids are making these decisions. They are in flux. They are forming those, and every day you need to be thinking about this, you need to be thinking of them.
Anyone that did not, we have 5 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment?
My name is Leslie Sutton. I live at 126 South Hardy. My daughter is a senior at OPRF. I want to commend the Imagine Committee for all the work they've done on all aspects of the high school facilities plan. The plan is creative and addresses the need for more modern academic environments, expanded performing arts facilities, gathering places where students and faculty can collaborate, and upgraded physical education facilities. That said, the plan was developed without a particular budget, and I believe the overall price tag of $218 million and the phasing of the project does not address the extreme taxation pressures on our community and the prioritization of academics and equity over physical education and even the arts. Even before this plan was proposed, the school has been generating a substantial operating deficit such that the reserves are being depleted. The board suggested that it may have to go to referendum as early as 2023 due to the depletion of the reserves because of the deficits. In addition, there is a very real possibility that the state of Illinois will ask the school boards to take on more of the teacher pension obligations, which could put further pressure on the budget. It is unconscionable that the board agree to use up a substantial portion of the reserves for even the first few phases of this plan. In addition, the tearing down of the south end of the school and the building of a large swimming pool remains a controversial issue in this community, as evidenced by the last referendum vote and the recent town hall. I ask the board to put this very controversial part of the plan to the public referendum, as there is no evidence of community support for this expenditure.
Okay, we'll move on with our agenda. Thank you. We are are there any items on this consent agenda that anyone wants to pull for individual consideration? Okay. So I move to approve the following consent items. A, check disbursements and financial resolutions dated November 15, 2018. B, monthly treasurer's report. C, gifts and donations. D, personnel recommendations, including new hires, transfers, stipend positions, resignations, and leave of absences. E, policies for second reading. Policy 2:150, committees. Policy 4:80, accounting and audits. Policy 5:30, hiring process and criteria. Policy 6:240, student travel. Policy 7:50, school admission and student transfers. And F, open and close minutes of November 5th and 8th, 2018, and a declaration that the closed session audio tapes of February 2017 shall be destroyed. And a declaration that the closed session audio tapes of January 1st, 1986 through November 8th, 2018 will be destroyed and mass will
and the funding of the grant is based on highest lows. So essentially, every school district in the state of Illinois is applied for this grant will go all the way to number 40, which means that Board of Education elects to pursue this with a very strong likelihood that it will receive the grant. In essence, what would happen is that the district would have to file a very short application to the state by January 7th, 2019, which means obviously the board would have to take action before then. And the intention is that consideration would be further on down the road. And felt that this was an important element of discussion before we jump to the text of the law. If the Board of Education applies, the maximum amount of property tax relief it would say that it's willing to give and get credit for is about $5.8 million. So that in the state of Illinois, in essence, would reimburse the district $3.8 million for doing that action. The percentage of reimbursement is based off, it differs from various districts. So the fourth district, 99% of it. So the interesting thing about this is that the requirement is that the district provide the abatement only one time. That's the requirement. But the benefit to the district is that they would get $3.8 million a year, and it would be embedded in their base funding minimum. So in theory, that $3.8 million they would not only receive this year, the check would be paid in May, but you would see them perpetually. I've been working with a lot of schools. Many of the school districts I work with are on the list, and I work with a lot of the poor school districts in Illinois, and essentially, it's a good plan. There's a lot of benefits to it. If the district does take that action, it would file an abatement by March of $5.8 million. And even if the Board of Education, this is probably the most important point, even if the Board of Education approves a 2.1% increase in its levy this year, and then takes the abatement of $5.8 million, it would decrease your taxes by 8.5%. After that point in time, the district, because it's a property tax relief grant, the district will receive this. The district does receive the $3.8 million perpetually. It has the ability to do what it wants to do with it. My recommendation to school districts is that going forward, this isn't a decision that would be made this year, is that if you do get the grant in year 2, year 3, year 4, et cetera, that you consider abating taxes accordingly. So ideally, it would be a revenue neutral situation with the school district, and the community would get needed property tax relief paid for by the state of Illinois. Obviously, this community contributes a lot of resources down to Springfield. This would be a way to get a little bit of money back to the community. So, yes.
So if we, can't hear you. Do we think, so this idea that it's an annual, if we just debate it once, do we think that that's what the legislature intended? Or do we think that that is an error in the statute?
So that's a great question, because I was actually involved in drafting this legislation. I didn't draft it, but I was involved in it at the very end when it was added. I thought it was a perpetual type of situation, we double checked with ISB and with the Illinois Department of Revenue to clarify that it is an annual type of a payment. I'm actually involved in 2 presentations Monday with the State Board of Education on this. So I get a better clarification and no more before December on the matter. So, I don't know. I hadn't read the bill. I had talked to the Speaker's office when it was being presented. My understanding was that it was going to be if you gave perpetual tax relief, you would get perpetual money coming into the school district. But that clearly that's not the interpretation of law. So the risk to the school district financially is that in year one, they elect to do it. They'll get $3.8 million in year one. They'll get that in May. That money's already allocated. And they actually have a date of like May 20th when you receive the money. And then you'd abate the taxes $5.8 million in March. It would hit the taxpayers' tax bills in the fall of 2019. And then if they stop the program, they said, well, we didn't mean to make it a perpetual type of deal. If they stop the program, the district would be out $2 million in that sense. But they would be giving $5.8 million of property tax relief for $2 million. So that probably would be the worst case scenario. If they fund it the second year, then you're money ahead. And then if they cut it out after that. So the potential downside is a 2-year hit on the fund balance reserves at $5.8 million of the taxpayer.
So, did I hear you correctly that the taxpayers will realize their savings, right, in the tax bill that comes in the fall of 2019, which is the 2018 tax bill, right?
Correct. Because the spring collection is just an estimate of
Right.
last.
So it'll be adjusted in whatever, what is it?
August
of
2000.
Okay. If the $5.8 million of abatement, is that predicated on us taking the 2.1% CPI?
No.
Okay. So we could forego the 2.1 CPI, still abate $5.8 million, all right, and receive the grant of 3.7.
Yes.
Okay, so there is no relationship then in terms of where we levy.
Right. What the county clerk's office is going to do is after the school district files its tax levy, they're going to calculate what you're entitled to based on what you asked for. And then after that final number is determined, then they're going to subtract $5.8 million from that amount.
Any other questions? So we'll stay tuned because you'll have more information.
Yes.
Yes. Plan is coming forth in December.
I would like to, for the next item, exercise executive authority and step away from the agenda for a second. This is tied to Imagine, in case you're wondering. Seems like almost 2 years. Time flew. After the failed referendum, we formed a group. We formed a launch team and then a work group and gave them a charge, as you heard, no parameters on cost, that is true. No parameters on what they could look at. But we asked them to do a comprehensive review of the district facilities and generate a long-term facilities plan. Some of you have received a small token from the school district. But as the superintendent of the school district, the work that you did went far beyond what I imagined. And so there were 2 people who stood up, and they were at opposite ends of the spectrum, and I ask that they come forward and help take the lead on this. And then I had my partner in crime from the district who, we put our heads together and said, let's make this happen. And in my absence of 3 months from medical, these 3 individuals did not allow one ball to drop. So in William Kameneska, Mike Porter and Karen Sullivan completed the report. So on behalf of my appreciation for all that you have done, this is just a token of appreciation. And this says William Kameneska in 2018, Imagine a Pure Now. This one says to Mike Porter, November 15, 2018, Imagine a Pure Now. And to Karen Sullivan, November 15, Imagine Ophelia. Just to thank you so much for the countless hours, the sleepless nights, the question answering, the ridicule, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the depth of the building to which you went, the height of the building to which you went, and the miles that you traveled. And regardless of what happens tonight and in the future, your work has truly been impactful, not just for the students we currently serve, but the students we will serve in the future. So we have myself and the Board of Education, thank you so much, and our students of the future. We could not have gotten to this place today without you. Thank you. And now our student video, which we did not get to show.
Oak Park and River Forest High School serves more than 3,400 students in a facility built in 14 stages from 1907 to 1968. OPRF is an excellent school. Its facilities are limited. And while those facilities have been well maintained, education and student needs have changed considerably in the last half-century. Today's student-centered learning requires flexible, technology-rich spaces that enable students to collaborate and meet individualized learning needs.
The school has made a few efforts to have these sorts of collaborative classrooms. One is our business incubator. It's a room that emulates an office setting in many ways. There's a conference room where you work together collaboratively. There are presentation pods where there's a small table with a display on the wall, and students can work together in groups. So the business incubator is a good example of the type of classroom that we would like to see. It's just a shame that we only have one of them.
Other classrooms require renovation, reconfiguration, or expansion to meet students' learning needs and adequately prepare them for college and careers. Science laboratories were areas where Imagine found particular need. Although some of them have been retrofitted with modern, flexible furnishings, others still require updating. Overcrowding is a problem in some learning spaces, leading to overflow into the hallways. The same problem exists in spaces students must navigate to get to their classes on time. Several spaces at OPRF lack up-to-date plumbing and ventilation, which cannot be retrofitted in their current locations. The boys' PE locker rooms have ceilings too low to install modern ventilation systems. The 90-year-old pools cause breathing difficulties for users due to inadequate ventilation. Broken ceilings and warped, damaged floors due to water leakage present injury risks for students. The Imagine team also found several instances where overcrowding of some facilities during classes or after-school extracurricular activities raised potential health and safety issues as well.
I mean, I would show music spaces and I would give them a tour when you're trying to rehearse 300 kids in a room that's not built for 300 kids. The amount of instruments, the amount of stuff that's in there, I would show them, as a person who doesn't work well in crowded spaces, I can't imagine the anxiety that that produces for some kids, just to have that sort of, you know, everything clustered around you.
Students told the Imagine team that they wanted more small, flexible spaces where they could study, collaborate, and socialize.
It's just a lot of stuff that could be going on in like a student's life where like they might not want to go home like at 5 o'clock.
One such space is the popular second floor balcony, but it can only accommodate a few dozen students during lunch or after school.
Can't be on the balcony, you gotta go, it's 5. Can't stay in the tutoring center even though it's good for you. To get out is overpacked. We have all of these resources yet we don't have enough space and we don't have time to use the resources that are literally for us. So, I mean, building more areas that are for us, that are actually to help us would be really helpful.
In terms of talking about the limitations of the library and how they were not always able to accommodate students, one of the sort of most recurrent things I heard was that they would love to serve students beyond the school day, to serve as kind of a hub where students could collaborate, where they could access resources, where they could address different research needs, or work on homework, or study, or be social within a space that promoted learning, was safe, was welcoming.
The Imagine team also found that OPRF's all-gender restrooms and locker rooms fall short of providing for student needs in an equitable fashion.
OPRF has just passed this fantastic policy to make sure that students who are gender nonconforming or transgender really feel welcome in this building. One of the facilities we found that works against that is the current all-gender bathroom facilities. They're really not in central locations. I'll fully admit I do not know how many we have or where they are. I miss not an insignificant amount of class, just having to go down the stairs and across the building, use the bathroom, and come back again. There's stuff that affects us and only us when it comes to like the building facilities. It makes you feel very like separated from the rest of the student community.
Some specific areas of the building can only be navigated via makeshift ramps, while others, like the science room, cannot be accessed at all by a student who uses a chair. There are only 2 elevators, both of which are old and slow, and neither of which serve the south or far north ends of the building.
The elevators we have are so old and they don't feel safe, and I don't think they're gonna last very much longer, to be perfectly honest with you. So at some point, they're going to need to be replaced whether we like it or not. You're not sticking up for people. Yeah, there's not that many of us, but you're putting us into this corner and you're saying, okay, well, we don't really care about you. And we're just gonna do everything else we need to do. You can still take this elevator, you can still try to navigate your way around the school without any help from us. And I don't think that is a very welcoming environment.
The issue of ADA accessibility is just one of the facilities needs the Imagine team identified in the special education teen spaces. Students served by this program include some with profound special needs, and this retrofitted space does not fully support student learning.
So I personally believe that generations to come will probably judge us, all of us, by how we treated those who were the most vulnerable among us.
The area is too cramped for students and their aides to maneuver. And requires travel through a public hallway to reach an ADA accessible bathroom.
question is, if now's not the time to do this, when is the time?
School proving decade for decades, leaking gallons daily, van room overcrowded, students lacking headway. Shame we never changed, leader has nowhere to change. You dress behind the curtain, ain't that strange? Family and consumer science, room remains the same. God is James playing, or plain as Jane, who has to carry orchestra instruments place to place. And God forbid she trips on the stair and the cello breaks. No AC in the locker room, students are sweating bait. And a black box, leader has no restrooms. Damage due to the expenses have us in debt soon. No one is telling me what does your head say? That old Park degree can clean up a mess made? What stop me? A couple dollars? What you need for scholars to grab your staff by the collars and preach to see you like Proverbs? I don't know and I don't get it. But I know that there's issues in the school, just needs to fix it. No excuses. I hope I don't find out this poem's useless because we have the tools and people to really do this.
After the defeat of the District 200 facilities referendum in November 2016, the D200 administration and board decided to create a citizen-led committee to undertake a thorough assessment of the facility needs at Oak Park and River Forest High School, with the charge to create a comprehensive long-term facility plan. A master plan is not a construction project where design and financing for every portion is done at the start. Instead, a master plan is a living document that should be reviewed and modified every few years as the impact of early projects is assessed, school needs change, and funding becomes available. The acceptance of the plan means that the board accepts the recommended facilities master plan, which is different from approving the plan. By accepting the long-term facilities master plan, the board is accepting the identified facility needs and is not locked into financial commitment. Once accepted, the facilities master plan becomes the board's. At that point, the Board of Education has the latitude to then decide what portions of the plan to implement and when, along with how to fund that portion. Over the past 16 months, the Imagine Work Group has conducted a rigorous needs assessment research process that resulted in the prioritized list of needs as outlined in the report. The process focused on student learning and equity in the context of facilities impact. The process resulted in recommendations tied to student learning spaces, inefficiencies from decades of minor construction, connections and community, equity along several dimensions, configuration and capacity, and unmet student enrollment and curricular space needs. The facilities master plan is designed to facilitate the education of the whole student, providing support for the full range of curricular and co-curricular activities that foster excellence, equity, and a sense of belonging for all OPRF students. At the conclusion of the presentation, the recommendation is that the Board of Education accept the facilities master plan presented by the Imagine Work Group. During the December 11th, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting, the administration will engage the Board of Education in discussion regarding the sequences of the facilities master plan that should be addressed initially, when and how to begin the process for potential ways to fund the work. This is in compliance with strategic plans, Goal 6, Strategy 3, and I turn it over to the Imagine Work Group. If you're a member of the Imagine Work Group, would you please stand? Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Good evening. Can
everyone hear me? My name is Lynn Kamenetza, and I, along with Mike Poirier, am a co-chair of the Imagine OPRF work group. We would both like to thank you for the opportunity to present Imagine's master facilities plan to you this evening and to answer any questions you may have. We will not be presenting all 140 pages of the plan to you tonight, but we will instead mention a few highlights, beginning with a quick review of how we got here. Some of that Dr. Pruitt-Adams has already done. So I will pick up with the first meeting of the Imagine team in August of 2017, which included 31 community members and 11 faculty and staff members. Mike and I were asked to co-chair because of our active roles in opposing referendum campaigns. For the next 15 months, the Imagine team worked to understand OPRF's facilities and their adequacy to meet current and future needs, and to create a workable, comprehensive plan to address those needs. Imagine's data collection methods were thorough, detailed, and diverse, including a student survey, 2 faculty and staff surveys, listening students with more than 600 students, listening sessions and interviews with faculty and staff, tours of OPRF's facilities, 5 community engagement sessions to gather public input, reviews of professional research, tours of other area high schools, and consultation with architects and construction professionals engaged by District 200. Imagine spent the next 6 months working to prioritize the identified problems and to understand how the most important ones could be addressed in a long-term master plan within the constraints of the school's physical space, the district's other priorities, and the community's financial concerns. Mike and I would like to take just a moment to acknowledge the volunteers of the Imagine OPRF work group. These team members went above and beyond our expectations in every way. For more than a year, they gave freely of their time, skills, and professional expertise. Their hard work, insight, professionalism, and willingness to challenge assumptions are responsible for the plan in front of you. Team, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. The school and the community owe you more than they will ever know, but Mike and I know. We'd also like to acknowledge the support, guidance, and expertise of the consultants from Perkins & Will Architects, Rick Young, Mike Dalter, and Mark Joliker, and from International Contractors, Inc., Terry Fielden and Mark Poskin. Their hard work turned Imagine's insights and findings into a concrete plan. And now I'm going to turn this over to Mike for a few comments about the plan itself.
Excellent. Am I on? Thank you. Well, it's been an interesting 15 months. As Lynn mentioned, the plan in front of you represents the collective efforts of our team over that period. And as you know, tonight we're asking you to accept this report, and in doing so, we feel it's important to be as clear as possible as to what that means and what it does not. First, we ask that you accept this plan as a vision for the facilities improvements of this high school for the future. A strategy for meeting identified needs in a manner that does not create obstacles for future problem solving. Acceptance of the plan does not constitute a commitment to doing all of it. It is not a commitment to any specific components or any specific amount of money. The overall master plan, as you realize, has been broken down into smaller components, which can be done as the school can afford them. Very importantly, this plan is designed so that the building is whole and fully functional after each sequence. There is not a risk that implementing part of the plan will put future boards in a position of being forced to do other sequences. The master plan, has been mentioned, reinforced, does not have a single budget. Components can be funded from multiple sources and as funds are available to you. When you or future boards choose to invest in future OPRF facilities, this master plan is our recommended approach to meet the identified needs in a logical, coherent, and comprehensive manner. While the only action tonight, is to vote on the administration's recommendation to accept this master plan as a vision, we would like to bring to your attention some specific recommendations that Imagine has included in the plan. I refer you to page 7 of the executive summary document. Once again, accepting the plan tonight does not obligate you to act upon these recommendations. But we do expect you to give them thoughtful consideration as you decide how to begin to implement the plan. I would ask that you review all these recommendations thoroughly in detail, but I'd like to highlight just a few of them for you this evening. First, we recommend that future facilities investments proceed largely in the order indicated in the plan. The sequences represent the Imagine team's assessment of prioritized needs as well as constructability considerations. We recommend pursuing an aggressive timetable for the RFQ process for the early work you decide to undertake, so that construction could begin in June of 2020. Because the major construction activity will take place as much as possible during the summer months, time is of the essence for this first set of decisions only. Specifically, we recommend that the board bid design and engineering for sequences 1 and 2 this winter, and while that's underway, make decisions about what construction to do simultaneously or sequentially. Separately, we strongly support an organized effort to raise private funds for portions of the plan. We know that there's some embryonic work going on in this area, but we want to endorse the further development of that. Imagine would like to see this work completed within a decade. We realize that funding and other circumstances may not allow that to happen, but we encourage you to consider it and keep it at least as an informal goal. We strongly recommend that the board establish a regular schedule for reviewing the master plan. This must be a dynamic process. As Dr. Pruitt-Adams said, future investments need to take into account the impact of previous investments and changes which will impact future work. And finally, although our formal work is complete, we hope the board will leverage the expertise and institutional knowledge of the Imagine team members at every stage of the process. And now I'd like to turn this back to Lynn for some important additional perspective.
Given what we heard tonight in public comment, given what's been going on in our villages over the last 2 weeks and in our schools specifically, I want to take just a few more minutes to say something about equity and student voice. In recent months, our communities have engaged in what I see as a deep and meaningful discussion about equity and inequity at OPRF. As I have said to you before, initiatives to facilitate equity and investments in improving facilities are not competing efforts. They are entwined and intertwined efforts. Claims that pit equity and facilities against each other are based on the false premise that this is a zero-sum game. It is not. It's the same set of problems, and it's mutually reinforcing solutions. In reality, the pursuit of equity happens in a place, and facilities can create obstacles or opportunities for that pursuit of equity. At its core, this master plan is an effort to remove those obstacles and to maximize those opportunities. At every stage, the Imagine team considered equity and equity implications of our work. Equity, as we have learned, is about providing each student what they individually need to be successful. Our plan creates facilities with the flexibility to support that goal. The plan improves academic spaces for all students and provides flexibility for instruction that meets the diverse learning styles of individual students. But the plan also includes facilities that help all students feel welcome, create spaces for groups of students who feel marginalized, support the whole student, support students' social and emotional growth, and create appropriate spaces for a full range of extracurricular activities. Because once again, what Imagine learned from students, staff, and independent research is that extracurriculars are key anchors for students in this school. They are not just fluff, as detractors would have you believe. We saw it in America to Me, and we saw it in every stage of Imagine's work. Extracurriculars provide all students with much-needed connection to their school, and for some, we found, it's the only thing that brings them through the front doors every day. That's why the master plan designs flexible curricular spaces that support a full range of extracurricular activities. As Mike is fond of saying, Marginal facilities affect all students, but they have a disproportionate effect on marginalized students. This master plan is designed to support all students in achieving their highest potential at OPRF. This plan facilitates equity. And finally, although it's a little bit long, finally, a central theme that I heard at last week's town hall on hate crimes was that we should listen to students and act on what we hear. That call sent me back into Imagine's data to look once again at how our plan lines up with what we heard from students. Part of what we heard is indicated in the student survey summary that's in your packet, which lists the spaces that students mentioned most frequently when asked what facilities do and don't work for them. Their responses were consistent whether you look at African American students, all students of color, or all students who responded. The master plan suggests investment in expanding and improving the spaces that work well for students, the tutoring center, the library, classrooms, the balcony, and the cafeterias. And the master plan suggests investment in fixing the spaces that students report don't work well from them: locker rooms, bathrooms, pools, classrooms, gyms, and music spaces. But the call to listen to student voices also sent me back to the survey responses themselves, where students told us what they would change about their school's facilities. And what I found was that the needs identified in Imagine's research are clearly and consistently reinforced in what students wrote. So I want to end by sharing with you the words of students themselves. I will omit some of the most creative and colorful language that students use to describe places like the locker rooms, bathrooms, pools, and field houses. They are clearly getting lots of instruction in creative writing. Let me take a sip of water because I don't want to mess this up. All of the quotes I'm about to read were written by students of color who were telling us what they would change about OPRF's facilities to feel at force. I would make a bigger athletic training office. Make the third floor gym ceilings higher and larger. Add more locker rooms for other sports. Spaces in locker rooms specifically for private changing. I would change the gyms and pools. Make them so they aren't chipping away. On arts facilities, students wrote, more space and equipment for stage crew. Spacious music rooms with large storage compartments for our instruments. Create new and larger practice rooms. A proper and large enough orchestra room. The band is the heart of the school. More band spaces, please. There are no rehearsal spaces for dancers at this school. We often have to dance on unsafe floors or in the hallways, which is also unsafe. Expand the green room and renovate the little theater for theater kids. Please make the green room bigger and fix the ventilation. The musical arts facilities really need updating, especially the auditorium sound system. It has ruined many an event with poor sound quality. Bigger and more rehearsal space. Maybe even a place for speech teams so students could use the library after school hours. On social spaces, students wrote, we need a place where students can just hang out or do homework without being yelled at by security guards. A personal space for students to hang out after school hours. Gathering space for students that is open longer than 5 o'clock. We could have a student lounge that provides students with a place to talk and relax during lunch as an alternative to the lunchroom. I would add more space to the balcony. Add more spaces for students who don't want to eat lunch in the hectic lunchroom. Make more hangout spots. And finally, on classrooms and other spaces, students wrote, renovate some of the classes by making them bigger. The Chem Lab should be updated or redone. Expand, update, and grow the number of STEM specialized classrooms. Bigger classrooms, so many kids crammed into one room. Maybe create more spaces for large clubs to meet, like APA. Have more classrooms with more windows in them to have more sunlight. Renovate some entrances so they are safer. Have more gender-neutral bathrooms and make the existing ones better, because right now they are awful. And finally, one student wrote, there should be space for people to do what they love in this school, be it band, orchestra, choir, theater, dance, woodworking, engineering, rapping, speaking, thinking, crying, hugging, everything. Thank you for the opportunity to listen to the students for the past year, and thank you for your consideration of the Imagine Master Facilities Plan.
point of approving. I will move to accept the facilities master plan recommendations and ask for a second. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'll just make a, I know this is not the night for the big discussion. I will just say that I, again, reiterate my appreciation for all the effort. It's really been tremendous to this point. And I feel like 15 months of all this work, and for us to turn around and make a decision by December for segments 1 and 2 is going to be a tall order, and it's uncharted terrain for this board, so we will see. But I'm eager to be able to get into the trenches. To this point, we've been really, by design, not talking about it. So I'm looking forward to that.